We've made more than just the 4 mistakes that we talked about last week, Shannon.
We certainly have. So I really enjoyed that format, and I'm happy that we rolled it into a part 2 show all about mistakes, because there's some powerful lessons, especially on this show. There is one that has stuck with me for, it was an early comment from a guest back in 2015 and I know it had made an impact on you as well. And it's powerful.
It is, yeah. I would say, we always ask guests what their favorite mistake is. I like all 3 of the ones that we have in this episode, but there is one in particular, and you'll know it, folks, when we get there. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, it will sound familiar, even if you didn't listen back in 2015. But this is what I would say certainly is my favorite mistake we've talked about, and I think I can say collectively it's our favorite mistake that we've talked about here. So, yeah, it's good stuff.
It is, yes, sir.
All right, well. In a pre-Thanksgiving episode, he is Shannon Jean, I am Dave Hamilton, and this is the Small Business Show. More mistakes is what it's time for, Shannon.
It is.
We're already stepping all over each other. That's the right kind of mistake to make. That's right.
That's right. Yeah. So we had, we picked out some of our best mistakes from, previous episodes with some of our, awesome guests that have come on the show. And we had so many that I thought, hey, let's do a part 2, because there's some really good stuff in these upcoming mistakes that people shared with us. And like we said last time, it's like tuition, right? You're going to spend some time or spend some money, sometimes a lot of money, but you're going to learn something. And these mistakes these folks made were important enough that it stuck with them when I asked that question of every guest, that these are the ones that they shared.
All right. Well, who's on deck here, Shannon?
Yeah. So up first, I loved having these guys on, or Paul Goodman from Pura Vida, and that story was so great. About going on vacation to Costa Rica after college and coming up and meeting these folks selling these little bracelets, and they turned it into a huge company that they just sold a hat. And I, for the life of me, I can't remember the company that bought half of a stake, 50% of their company, but it's a massive company, and I'm sure they did really well. So one of the things that Paul shared with us is I call the avoid the shiny objects mistake. So let's hear it, Dave.
All right. Avoiding shiny objects.
Share one of those mistakes you might have made that really taught you a good lesson in your business career.
Yeah. I think the biggest mistake is like me and my partner very easily think there's always like a shinier, brighter, easier way to do something. So, I mean, last year, for example, we got pitched on, switching our website and, kind of like overhauling our whole back end, and we're promised that it's going to increase conversion rates and, more customers, more transactions, more checkouts, higher dollar amount. And, we agreed to make this switch. And with the switch came they charged us a percentage of sales, and we kind of just got sold. And I think, we're now back on our old platform, but I think you got to realize, like, if something's working and it's working well, like, you got to really, really, have to make a switch if it's necessary. If it's working and it's going how you want it to be, there's no reason to make a switch just like for some other shiny platform,
Yeah.
That's good advice, man.
It is.
I am constantly under the spell of new shiny, and I need to. I mean, I'm aware of it, so I temper it. But there are good new shiny things sometimes, and so you don't want to be the one that says, "Oh, it's new, it's crap." No, not necessarily, but you got to evaluate everything very, very judiciously, I think.
Yeah, I would agree, and I have this problem as well. Most of these mistakes I have made one time or another, and It is true, because you're always thinking, how do I make it better? That's an entrepreneur. How do I do this better? How do I be more productive? What's the easier way? Or maybe easier is not the right word, but and I always have tried to get closer to my customer. And, this really resonated with me when Paul was talking about, we got pitched on this thing and we had a good website. It was working fine. We were taking orders and thought that, if we revamp this whole thing, we'll sell more. Well, it doesn't always work this way. And I've gone down this rabbit hole as well. And a number of times to where I finally, on the web, in your e-commerce front, I finally just turned it over to another company because I was, I can build this and I can do that. And you spend so much time and effort and money trying to customize something when I believe now there are other great solutions out there. You don't want to always jump at the next thing to try, that's going to be better. Look at your systems and your processes and think, what's working and what has to be changed. You only change it if it's really not working, right? Or if there's some huge benefit. So.
Yeah. Well, that's the key is you have to convince yourself why you're making this change. And don't make it just for change's sake. And certainly don't make it to prove a point.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is, in my case, kind of a young business person dilemma is you're kind of hard charging. We're going to do this. And I know I can do it better, right? I know I'm this kind of thing. So you may not have the ability yet to take a step back and get some perspective on, is this the best thing to do with our time and our money right now? And sometimes you have to step back and look at that dashboard level or kind of a global level of your company and, okay, what is the best thing to do now? And where do we put our efforts to grow the business, if that's what you want to do, or stabilize or be more productive? And, you need to take time and really look at it and not get distracted with shiny objects and shiny projects.
I like it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too. Those are good guys. So go back and listen to that episode. It was a good one.
We do have links for all of these, by the way, for last week and this week are all in the show notes at businessshow.co. So you can go back and listen to the whole episode. And I want to say thank you, Shannon. Thanks for putting all these together and finding all of these great clips. It's been awesome, man.
Yeah, we have some great content up there at businessshow.co. I mean, there's literally 5 years of, not only just Dave and I talking, but, guest after guest that has some awesome experiences, companies that are everything from sole proprietors that have been around for a long time, new startups to, people that sold their companies for, hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's a great wide array of guests that content library on the Small Business Show is really worth listening to. And we're going to highlight some more of those as we get into next year. Yeah. All right, man. Well, who's next? Yeah. So this was a great one. I loved. It's Brittany all were red. I'm sure. All were rude, I think is how she pronounced it. Yeah. Butchering her last name. But she started a company. First, she started as a dog walker and poop picker upper is how she described it herself. And then over time, and she educated us about that business as, hey, there's people making millions of dollars in the dog walking business. But what Britt realized is that she was a dog walker, not a business person. And so she decided to change that and launched a company called Handler, Handlr, for other service businesses to use their software and their apps to help manage their business. And so I call this one the not launching fast enough mistake or chasing perfection. And let's hear what Britt has to say. All right. And so, what do you think is the best mistake that you've made while you're getting Handler off the ground? And what mistake did you learn the most from?
Well, I think the biggest mistake was not launching fast enough, not releasing fast enough. You know how you just want your product to be perfect?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So that took a while, but then at the same time, I did sort of rush it. And so we had the typical, when you launch a product the first time, especially software, there's going to be bugs, or not just bugs, but a few different logic flaws that we needed to fix. And so even though it took pretty long to get out, and then even though we kind of launched when the product wasn't fully completed, all the features, fully baked, but at the same time, I'm glad that we it didn't quite have perfect product market fit because it would have been crazy if we had thousands of people sign up originally. So I'm kind of glad that we didn't do a huge crowdfunding campaign or have a huge push when we first launched, because, we've been able to really dial in the product in the last year. And now we're launching version 2, which is going to be ready in 2 weeks. And it is kick ass, and it's that product market fit. So we're really excited to just go crazy with this.
That's great.
Wow.
Yeah. The thing I love about this is she's such a entrepreneur, business owner, because she quickly spins it, right?
I know.
It's a mistake, but this is I find myself doing it all the time. But the key point there, the takeaway for me here is that, and you have a phrase that you say all the time. I don't know what it is, but something about perfection is the enemy of whatever. But
is the enemy of good. Yeah.
Yeah. And that chasing perfection, failure to launch, holds us all back. I think I've certainly made that mistake when you're like, oh, we're not ready. And I think the important thing is to get to that minimally viable product, an MVP, and that could be your whole company, right? You're not going to start out of the gate. It's like we had Sara from Gilded Leaf on that we had her mistake that we talked about last week, and you just have to get out there, and it's going to take time, whether your product needs to find a foothold in the market or your business needs to find that. You just have to start, talk is not going to get you anywhere. Right?
Yeah.
You can't, you can't just keep going ready, aim. At some point you have to fire. And
I find when I have potential business partners, starting business, and we talked at last week's episode about warning signs, right? And those warning signs were that your partner wants to be an employee. This warning sign to me is one where someone is just afraid, right? And of failure, but also afraid of success. To me, those two are the same thing. They are the fear of change is what they are. And because, the status quo is always good. But when someone comes to me with lots of pro formas and I did all these spreadsheets and look, we can tweak the spreadsheet and look how much money, look what the company's worth and all this. It's like the company's worth nothing. It's now worth less because you spent your time building that instead of, how much more time are you planning on spending on that? It might be good. Like I get anytime somebody does one of those things, unless you're courting some kind of investment or whatever. And even then I would still make this same argument because most investors that are angel investors don't actually care. They know that stuff is crap because your business doesn't really exist yet. They're just going to invest in you, not in your paperwork. But anybody that's doing that is doing it to placate their own fears, right? We all make, I always say that we all make emotional decisions, right? Every purchase, or if you want to say buy-in, is an emotional decision. But you can support that with a spreadsheet sometimes, and that makes you feel better, and then you make the decision. Somebody that's doing those isn't convinced that this business is viable yet. And that is a warning sign to me. So,
I agree. And, your idea, is only worth, it's not worth much unless you take some action on it. Right. Yeah. And you can talk, and I hear it. And I love talking about ideas and sitting around and having a beer and we could do this and you could do that. It's awesome. But it's action that really solves problems. I use this phrase, a symphony of action. If you've got something in your life that's not working, man, it's action. You've got to take some action, and you may not get the result you think you're going to get, but something is going to happen.
Right. And you might learn that it's not tenable. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Now I know. Problem. Now I can move on. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. No, you gotta. I challenge anyone to find a valuable business that is valuable because they have a great idea, not because they have executed well. Most valuable businesses have relatively like good, maybe even mediocre ideas. Very few of them have exceptional ideas behind them. It's just a good idea, and then you execute extremely well. That's the key, right? Bullheaded persistence, get it done. Yep.
Yeah. And adjust, create a system like we talk about here all the time, and then iterate, that didn't work. Nobody wanted that product, but how do we change it a little bit? Or nobody, I can't get customers this way. How do I change and try it and test and look at the data? So I thank Britt for that. It's a great starting point to have that discussion.
All right, one last one, man, before we send everybody off to, or before we send ourselves off to eat turkey for Thanksgiving here.
Yeah, exactly. This one really is powerful, and it has stuck with me because I thought it was a very early interview we did back in 2015 with Brian Friss from Digistore.
Yep.
And what I thought was it was so authentic and so it was just real, and it was about fear. And it was, basically it's the don't make fear-based decisions mistake. But Brian says it the best. So let's hear from Brian.
Yeah, let's go, Brian.
This is a long one, but it's worth it. Do you have something that you could look back at and say, wow, that was at the time, was maybe miserable or whatever, but now you look back on it and say, man, I really learned a valuable lesson that's helped me move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's we could have a whole show just on that. There's been plenty over the last 14 years, but I guess the easiest way to look at it for me is when I look back at decisions I've made or the direction we've gone and it hasn't worked out, you kind of look at the mindset that you had at the time. And I look at our biggest mistakes, and they're all fear-based decisions, right? They weren't data-driven. They weren't off, in a way that was a little bit more tangible. It was fear-based. And, one that really sticks out to me is back when, 2009, 2010, when this economy dropped and we had a really tough time, we were looking for that pivot. We were looking for that next direction. And instead of really extending on to where we've seen success, we took a different turn and we decided we were going to, create some retail products, create some software that would be, easy archiving software. For Blu-ray, it was a really kind of subset of a niche market, and went and worked with a consulting firm and spent a ton of money on a horrible website and just a horrible direction, and we lost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on it. And, we quickly realized we were wrong. We pivoted again. And like I said, now we're doing better now than we've ever done. I love our direction. I love what we're doing. But I look back at that and I go, well, how the heck did I do that? Why did I make such a stupid decision? And and every time I think about it, it's always because you're scared. You make a fear-based decision instead of really, following the data or following where you've been successful and trying to extend from those success points.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic comment. And I could certainly attest to making those same kind of decisions over time. And you look back and you go, man, you make some quick decision that you think is going to fix everything. And you realize, wow, that, I didn't have enough data to back it up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's no quick fix, right? And everybody's scared. I mean, you're a small business. It's scary. Yeah. And things change quickly and the environment changes and you have, guys.
Yeah, man.
That's powerful.
The pause that I have so much to say about this one. I know you do too. The pause that existed between when he finished talking and when you resumed with him was so telling. Like it was like, when, like you noticed with me in last week's episode where I somebody said something and I went, like it just like, it takes your breath away. Like that's, and this one that don't make fear-based decisions is something that I have quoted verbatim hundreds of times since this episode, so much so that I had forgotten who said it. I knew it was one of our interview guests. I certainly knew it wasn't me, but it has become such a part of my lexicon and it's a mantra of mine. I share it with other people as often as I can because it's such a powerful phrase. And it's one of those things that you don't necessarily want to hear when you need to hear it, but it resonates, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah. I mean, Same here. It stuck with me because I think it was a long time ago and we were just kind of getting started and getting things rolling on this show. And we had him on, and for him to be so honest and open to make that comment, hey, we're all scared. It's scary. We're small business owners. It's scary. And I was like, wow, this is really going to be a powerful thing, this show, for me personally.
Yes.
Because, I get to hear this firsthand stuff from all these very successful people, and they're open about their struggles. And it changed the way I viewed what this show could be, and helped me a lot, and where and what direction it could take it. And I know Brian, and I've kept in touch with him, and it is such a good thing to think about. Is follow the data. Don't make fear-based decisions. Doesn't mean you're not going to be afraid, because this is normal. But most people don't talk about it. Most people don't put it out there and say, yeah, we were scared that this was going to happen. So, we all have this facade, right?
Right.
And you're, out on the front, and, it just cut to the heart of it. And I have so much respect for him for putting it out there to thousands of other small business owners. And I really felt it was worth hearing again. Our listeners have, we've grown so much in the last 5 years that it's something worthwhile to hear over and over and over. And we mentioned it a lot on the show. Don't make fear-based decisions. But
it's become the show's mantra. It's so weird that to hear that again.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And so I thank to Brian and to Brittany and to Paul Goodman, for sharing those mistakes and being forthcoming and transparent is really has helped educate so many business owners out there that get to share that knowledge that you've acquired. I love it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
No, that's stuff. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how many of these things have become just ingrained in what we do here. This is certainly
they're educating us.
Yeah, well, that's true. Of course,
they're educating us, and then we just keep the thing I love about this show is that shared knowledge, and then we kind of tease out these powerful pieces of these interviews and what happens and things that we read, and then we internalize them. Makes us better business people, and we hope it makes our listeners better business people as well. And I think it has. We all the feedback we get, at feedback@businessshow.co or on our Facebook group, it really has made a big impact on people's lives. I can hear. I listen to, or you read people's emails. I had to pull over and write this down as you guys were sharing this thing. I love that. It's the best. So we're all in this together. Everybody has those times of fear. And we have to just support each other and help each other succeed.
No, this show has been, you say you learn the most. You say you learn the most from each episode. I will say that I've gotten the biggest benefit out of this show. I am a much better business person than I was when we started this show. And I attribute so much of that to, just the fact that we're paying attention to it every week. Either by doing the show, which Shannon and I do, or you by listening, just paying, what's the favorite phrase? That which is monitored is managed, right?
Yeah.
So being intentionally aware of these things, sometimes good, sometimes bad, has made me better. But more than that, it's the advice that we've gotten from all of the folks that we've interviewed, the advice I've gotten from you, Shannon, the advice that we've gotten from our listeners. So I know, for us in releasing this episode, Thanksgiving is tomorrow. So it's a nice time to say thanks to everybody. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to all of our guests. It really, truly has had a profound impact on my personal life. And
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And thank you, Dave. The show wouldn't exist without you. You always have taken the risk when I've reached out to you a couple times in our lifetime and said, hey, I want to try this. And sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. But we've had a couple of successes, and I definitely count one as that.
Yeah, this is a huge success, I think. Yeah. It's got ripples, and that's the thing that. It's good. It's good. Well, folks, share your ripples with us. Feedback@businessshow.co. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to. You know what? If all you want to do is say thanks, do that. We really do just love hearing from you. So if you are driven to say something profound, do it. But if you don't have anything profound to say, just say something. Chances are it will mean something to at least Shannon and I, and maybe you'll share something that will mean something to listeners of the show as well. So don't sell yourself short. The advice you have in your head is valuable. I would love to do an episode full of listener advice, but we need your help to do that. So yeah.
It's good stuff, man. Yeah. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving with family and friends.
Thanks.
And we'll be back here next week.
See you next week.